So sorry for the interruption. I think I was having some issues with the internet. Sonu sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Uh, okay, we'll go ahead. So on my screen, you can see the list of in-demand certification courses we are currently focusing on. And for more details, I'll share contact to one of my colleague, Mr. Vivek Balasundaram. You can connect with him for more details regarding the sessions. So do follow us on our social media platforms to get relevant update on upcoming webinars, workshops, and certifications training we do. Also, I've already shared the link in the chat box. So do follow us on our social media platform. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. Now we'll hand over the mic to a speaker. Sonu, so you can take over from here.
Okay. Okay. So, hello everyone. I hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Okay. So, is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, welcome everyone to the session. Are you well architected? Myself, Sonu Satyadas, the speaker for today's session. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer as well as an AWS authorized instructor. So, this session is designed to train the participants on the AWS well-architected framework. It aims to build a strong foundation for the teams that are either already using the AWS or those who are planning to migrate to AWS. So this session basically focuses the session basically focuses the enablement. That is, meaning the participants will gain some internal knowledge to apply the well-architected framework effectively. And this training will help to grow the individual expertise, ensuring the participants to understand the best practices for building the secure, efficient, and reliable cloud architectures. So what we are expecting from this session is it will help you to enable, or it will enable people to understand what is a well architected framework and implement it confidently. As you are understanding this, the adoption will scale and accelerate across the organization. Means your team, the organization entirely is capable to go and deploy the solutions on cloud. Ultimately, this leads better architectural decisions and optimized workloads. I can hear some noise. Okay, just okay. So let's get started. So in this session, we will discuss what is AWS well-architected framework is, including a brief history and the reason it is created, as well as how you can use this in your organization. So Next, we will be covering the framework structure and its components, and we will also discuss how to use the framework to run a review on your workloads. And this includes explaining what the workload is, what consider when defining this workload or when using these workloads, and some of the best practices to run the successful reviews. So let's understand what is the well-architected framework. So when you look at the workloads your team is building, can you answer the question, are you well architected? That means, how confident are you that those systems are built following the best practices for the cloud? Yes, suppose if you have already created some resources on the cloud, how you can say that you have followed all the best practices for getting the best performance, reliability, cost saving, operational excellence, and security. So maybe some of you may say yes, or some of you say no, because if you don't know what is mean by well architected, then you cannot answer this question. So let's go through a brief history of the well architected framework. In 2012, AWS began asking some of the fundamental questions like, are you well architected? So that is the time they started asking, are you well architected? Means, are you following the best practices for building and deploying the cloud solutions? Then this was the starting point for encouraging the customers to think critically about their cloud workloads. Because people started thinking, okay, am I building the solutions following the best practices? In 2014, AWS introduced the questions across four pillars, basically the security, reliability, uh, uh, performance efficiency, and the cost, means cost optimization. But in 2015, the official AWS well-architected framework was published, providing the structured guidance for building the secure, high-performing, resilient, efficient infrastructure. So that means that that time they have comes with a proper definition or documentation for these questions. In 2016, AWS has added one more pillar into that. That is a operational excellence, and now it's now that becomes five pillars. But recently they have added one more, sustainability, but which we are not discussing here. In 2017, it select the AWS partners. We are trained to conduct the well architected reviews, because we have to conduct the reviews to identify whether we are running the workloads following the well architected framework. So the APN partners, that is AWS Partner Network team, were trained to conduct this reviews, because this is enabling the broader adoption through the partner-led engagements, because most of the cloud implementations are now done through the partners, whether it is Microsoft or AWS or any other cloud service provider. The vendors, they are not directly going to implement and manage them. So it will be done through the partners. So the partners were uh, trained to conduct this well-architected reviews in 2017. And in 2018, AWS launched the self-service well-architected tool so that it allowed customers to perform the reviews on their own. So we have this tool available on the AWS account. So the organizations or individuals can independently do the reviews now. In 2019, the well-architected tool and the partner program were expanded very globally, so making these reviews and improvement plans accessible across multiple regions. So that's a history of the well-architected framework. But why this well-architected framework? So the first point I can say is build and deploy faster. What it means? By applying this framework, organization or the teams can reduce the time spent on firefighting and manual capacity management. So they don't need to go and do anything manually. They don't need to spend time on any manual task. So how it is working? The automation and the best practices allows the teams to experiment very more frequently and release the applications or the services much faster. So because it helps the things to do much faster, it automate most of the manual works they were doing, so that it accelerate the innovation and shorten the time to market. Means because most of the things are automated, they are now able to go and deploy the services very quickly. So they can release the services very quickly. Second point I can say is lower or mitigate the risk. What does that means? This framework, the well-architected framework, is helping the team to identify the architectural risk in the early stage itself. So through the structured reviews, you can pinpoint the weakness or that means the security gaps or the reliability issues in your solutions, and you can address them before they cause some problems in the applications later in later. So this helps to reduce the operational surprises, because later in the production you will not face such problems because you will be identifying such risk in the early stage itself, and you can mitigate those risks. The next point what I can say, make informed decisions. Means it encourages deliberate architectural choices rather than the ad hoc decisions. So every decision is evaluated for uh, some points or based on some point like cost, performance, security, and reliability. So this is aligned with the technical design and the business outcomes. So any decisions that we take is basically uh, direct, uh, uh, directly based on those points. Like basically we will think about the cost, performance, security, and reliability. So this improves the governance and ensures the technology investments deliver in a measurable way. So we can easily identify or we can plan in an effective way So what will be the budget? How will be the performance? So what kind of security is implemented? Okay, so these things will be measurable. Learn AWS best practices. What that means? So the team will gain access to the proven technologies or proven strategies or the patterns from the AWS. So because AWS has identified or engaged with a lot of customers, identified their pain points, so they have crafted some best practices. So now these best practices can be implemented for the other customers. So that means we can avoid the common issues and leverage the industry leading practices that the AWS cloud is offering. So as I can say, the customers who is adopting the AWS well architected framework will achieve better and faster delivery of the solutions. They can reduce the risk. They can take better decisions and stronger alignment with the AWS best practices. So it's not just a theory. That's because it's just proven because the AWS has already implemented this to thousands of their customers, and from there they have identified what are the best practices, what will work and what will not work. So now this best practices is now available to the other customers. So it's not just a theory, it's already proven technology. So a mechanism for the cloud journey. So a well architected framework, you can say, or it is described as a mechanism for that is helping you for the successful implementation of your workloads. Workloads in the sense whatever the services you are deploying on the cloud. So how you can successfully build and operate the services on the cloud, that is described by the well architected framework. So what are the things we have to understand? Learn. That is, we have to acquire the strategies and best practices for architecting in the cloud. So what are the best practices or what are the strategies we have to follow? So we have to first learn about that. That means understanding this AWS recommended principles for building secure, efficient, and cost-effective systems. So you will, by learning the well-architected framework, you will be understanding the AWS recommended principles for building the secure, efficient, and cost-effective workloads on the cloud. Second is measure. So you evaluate your current architecture against the best practices. There are some best practices provided by AWS. So you will evaluate your existing or your current architecture against those best practices. And this framework is providing the some kind of structured questions and the pillars. So basically the security, reliability, performance, then cost optimization, operational excellence. These are the pillars. Okay. So you will be asked a lot of questions against these points. So you can benchmark your workloads. Like what is a gap? So what is the recommended and how much I have implemented? because you will be measuring the gaps, right? And then we improve. Improve means identifying the gaps. So you are doing the measure and then you identify the gaps and how we will address those issues. Suppose if we, by measuring this, we are identifying some gaps. Okay, now the question is how we can address this issue. Okay, so when we conduct a review, we will identify, okay, my existing solutions is not aligned with the AWS best practices. Okay, what is the difference? So in my implementation, what is missing? So you will identify those gaps and then fixing that. So this steps ensures the continuous improvement and alignment with the AWS standards. So that means it's not going to be happening in a single step. So you will be doing continuously improving it. Maybe you will be implementing some best practices. After that, you will be implementing some more like that. So what is this well architected framework? A well architected framework is a structured approach to evaluate and improve the cloud solutions or the cloud architectures. So it is doing things by providing a set of questions like why whether these solutions that we have is following the best practices. So these questions help you to assess whether your workloads follow the best practices or not. So they basically cover the areas like security, reliability, cost optimization, and more. So these are the pillars of the well architected framework. So this design principles means these design principles for building the systems much as scalable, secure, efficient, and cost effective. They include some basic principles for automating the processes and scaling the services. So these all based on the five pillars of the well architected framework. So these five pillars are basically the operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. So this operational excellence basically focusing on the operations, monitoring, and the continuous improvement. But security is how you protect your data, systems, and the other assets. Means data security, infrastructure security, and the other resource security. Reliability basically talks about or it ensures these workloads uh, performs in things in a better way, and if there is some kind of issues and it will be recovering from that issues very quickly. So how quickly it is able to recover from those issues, and the performance efficiency is using these resources in an efficient way and adapt to those changing requirements. Means suppose if you are deploying a database, when the number of requests coming to that is very less, okay, it can run in a normal service. But when the number of requests increases, the performance can go down because maybe a server cannot handle all these requests at time. So we have to think about scaling, maybe adding more number of servers, or we may have to change the service tiers itself. Cost optimization is the next point, which is helping you to understand how to avoid those unnecessary costs and maximize the value. Because there may be a lot of resources we are deploying which may be overutilized or means over provisioned. So this over provisioned resources we can remove. Or if we are storing some data, maybe in case of AWS, the S3 bucket, we are storing the data which is not frequently accessed. So if it is not frequently accessed, then why we have to store this in a costly tier, frequent access tier? So better we can put them inside some glacier or archival services so that we can reduce the cost. So this can give you the advices about the cost optimization. So why this is matters? Because by answering these questions and applying the design principles based across these pillars means we are applying all the best practices on cost saving, reliability, security, operational excellence, and performance. You can easily identify the risk and gaps in your architecture. You can make informed and you can take decisions to improve this performance, security, and cost. And you can build a strong foundation for scaling your workloads. So in this section, we will see about some more points about the well architected framework. Primarily the pillars of the AWS well architected framework. So we have already discussed the 5 pillars of the well architected framework. So suppose you are building, if if you are constructing a house or you are constructing a very large building. So when you construct this building, if the foundation is not strong, what will happen? Definitely that building became unstable. Maybe it will collapse also, right? Because if the foundation is not strong, whatever you may build on top of that will not sustain. So the AWS well architected framework provides 5 pillars on you can build the services following the best practices on these pillars. So what are those pillars? The first one is operational excellence, then security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. So if you are not considering these pillars or if you are neglecting these pillars, then you will face a lot of challenges in building the solutions. You may not face the issues in the initial stages, but later going forward, you may face a lot of challenges. Maybe you are not able to scale the services to meet the performance. You are not able to manage or maintain the security for your applications and services, or you may not be able to stick within the budget constraint because you are not following the best practices on these points. So if the, as I mentioned earlier, if the foundation of that building is not strong, if it is weak, so a lot of problems can come. Similarly, this architectural problems, or if there is some issues on those core principles, your system, your solutions can also may fail. Maybe there is a lot of security issues, performance related issues, cost problems, manageability issues, okay, and disaster recovery and reliability issues. Maybe there is some issue happened, systems goes down. It may not recover very quickly because you have not implemented the disaster recovery solutions. So, what is the benefit of implementing or incorporating these pillars? So, when you integrate these pillars in your design, you are creating a stable and efficient system. So, this stability allows you to focus on the functional requirements rather than these firefighting issues. So, the design principles will help you to adopt the appropriate mental model when building the solutions on the cloud. It ensures that you take the advantage of the capabilities of the AWS and free yourself from the constraints of the traditional application uh, development or deployment approaches. So you adopt the appropriate mental model, means the cloud architectures requires a shift from the traditional on-premise thinking, like how you think in your on-premise solutions, you have to think differently in a cloud environment. Instead of a rigid infrastructure, you think about the elasticity, automation, and the scalability. Because in on-premise, we have very limited resources. We cannot think about elasticity, scalability, and automation. But when it comes to the cloud, you don't need to worry about the number of resources. You can easily scale the solutions. So when you build in the cloud, means you leverage the AWS native features. Like there are a lot of managed services where the AWS is managing the underlying infrastructure, security, monitoring, backup, disaster recovery. Everything will be managed by the AWS, and they will take care of the global infrastructure and pay as you go pricing approach, which means if you are not interested to continue, or if you are not interested to use the services, anytime you can stop. Whatever you have consumed, you have to pay. Means you can start using the services without spending anything, and once you stops using the services, you don't need to pay anymore. So take the advantages of the AWS capabilities, like auto scaling, serverless computing, then availability zones are there. So when you work with the on-premise, means in a traditional deployment scenarios, you may not get these features. Auto scaling is very, very difficult to implement. There is no serverless computing concept, and you cannot go global. Okay, global scale is not possible. But when you work with the AWS, you can think about this. So as I mentioned, you can free yourself from the traditional constraints, like avoiding the older patterns, like provision more services, because you are not able to figure out what will be the usage. So usually what you do, you will over provision the hardware resources, and you do manual scaling. So these things you can avoid when you go with the cloud, because you will be free. The auto scaling, who will take care? Cloud will take care. Disaster recovery, who will take care? The cloud will take care. Observability, who will take care? The cloud will take care. So the general design principles. The cloud computing opens up a new world of thinking, because the limitation that is existing in our traditional environment, I think, I mean, about the capacity, the cost, and the limited resources. So they are not now there in the cloud. So in cloud, you have a completely new world. Okay. So you can stop guessing your capacity need. Means you don't need to guess, okay, how much I have to provision, or how many servers I have to create. You don't need to go and guess things. You have to predict infrastructure needs based on the rough business requirements before you go and start writing any applications. So that is not required now. Test systems at the production scale. So usually we do in the traditional environments, we do testing in a local environment, but in the production scale or in the production environments, the things are completely different, because the local development or local developer machine is different, production server is different. So local environment, it may works better or it works in a normal way, but when you go into the production, things will be completely different. But how will test this? If you are using the on-premise, it will be very difficult for us to go and test using the similar production environment. But in the cloud, you can easily replicate or recreate a production level environment. Maybe you can call it as a staging environment, and you can test your solutions there itself. Automate to make architectural experimentation easier. So usually the POCs, that is the proof of concept, and the architectural changes were manual and limited in the traditional environment. So usually we will do this only in the beginning of the uh, stage, or maybe beginning of the process. That means if you are planning to create some or deploying some solution, we'll do creating the POCs or creating the architectural designs only at the beginning. But later it will be very difficult for us to change, because in on-premise we cannot do that. But in cloud, at any point of time, you can make changes. You can create new solutions and deploy. So allow for evolutionary architectures. So these systems were very hard to change in the traditional environment. And evolution is very difficult, because in case if I have to try something new, some new architecture, maybe microservices, distributed applications, serverless computing, clustered services. So if I have to try out some of these things, on-premise it's very, very difficult. But in cloud, you can do this very easily. Drive the architectures using data. That is, in on-premise, we have very limited data for taking the decisions. So you mostly rely on the models and assumptions instead of the real data. Means some very limited data is available. So improve through game days means you practice the operational excellence proactively, means runbooks were exercised or only in the failures in the traditional system, but in the cloud, this is executed in a proactive way. Means there is some advisors, there is some alerting systems. Suppose if something goes wrong or if there is something may go down, you will get the alerts and notifications. So as I can say, the cloud is enabling the agility, automation, and the data-driven decisions so that you can apply the principles to fully leverage the cloud services. So performing a well-architected review. So what is the intent of review? Let's understand. The purpose and the approach of this well-architected review in AWS is, uh, first of all, this is not an auditing process. So, review is not an auditing process, which means like unlike the traditional auditings, which is uh, often feel like a punitive, this review is completely collaborative, which means the teams are working together to identify the areas of enhancement and implement the changes. So instead of doing this as a one-time activity, like making the audit or a single team, the auditing team is working on that to identify the issues. Here, this is a collaborative solution because here multiple teams are working together. The security team is working, the management team is working, deployment team is working. So there are multiple teams who works together to enhance the changes in your or enhance and implement the changes inside your solutions. Programmatic advice means the framework focus on the practical proven recommendations. It's not just theory, as I mentioned earlier. The framework is providing you a practical solution for the pain points. And these are proven technologies or proven recommendations. It is helping the other teams to succeed instead of just going through the theoretical knowledge. Okay. So whether the system is very simple or complex, you are able to go and follow this and implement that in your systems. So after the initial review, you will be start updating this workload. Means you will after the initial review, you will identify some gaps. Okay, there are some issues I have identified in the security. Okay, let's go and update in the workload. Okay, we may fix those gaps completely or partially. Then we will revise or we will review again. Then you will identify some more issues. Maybe there are some more security related issues. Plus, we have also identified some performance related issues. Okay, let's go and fix that using the best practices. Again, we will do the review. then you will identify some more problems. Okay, so like this will go in a cyclic format, because this is not a single time task. You will keep doing these things or keep updating the workload, and you will track. So you can use milestones to track the changes, or how you are improving. So what is, you will be measuring the improvements over the time. Like, okay, we have implemented now 60 percentage security or secured application. Now, after the second review, okay, now the security is enhanced. It is now, maybe I can say the benchmark is 70% or 75%. Maybe if you fix some of the other problems, now the security's benchmark will, or the points you will get is maybe 80 or 85%. So you will keep tracking, okay, how much you are uh, improving, right? So that you will identify in this review. So these teams leverage these review outcomes to determine or demonstrate the value to the stakeholders. You will be telling this outcome, the review outcome, to the stakeholders. You are showing those changes, what is happening in the reliability, security, cost efficiency, and the architectural quality to the other stakeholders. So they will understand, okay, by implementing this well architected framework, we are improving the security, or we are improving the performance. Learnings. What have we learned from this reviews, or by doing these reviews? So review, we have to do, or we do the review early in the life cycle. So what is the benefit of conducting this review in the early stage? So conducting the well architected reviews in the early stage or in the early phase, it is making the things easier and faster to fix the problems. So if there is some problems, doing this review will help you to identify the problems in the initial stage itself. If you are able to identify the problems in the early stage, you are able to fix it, so that the things will not become very complicated. As you know, like diseases, if there is if there is a small cough, you may ignore it, but as time goes, this can lead to complex diseases like a pneumonia or something like that, right? So that means if you are avoiding or neglecting things in the early stage, later when the systems become complex, things can become very problematic. So identify these problems in the early stage itself, and fix those issues in the early stage itself. Early reviews can influence the design decisions before these things become very costly or complex, as I said. So most of the issues arise because the teams are forget to make the decisions. So not because they are making the wrong decision, maybe they forget to take the decision. Okay, suppose if you say, uh, suppose if the organization is forgetting to start taking backup. So as an example, I'm saying, suppose in the initial stages, they forgot to start taking the backup. So what happens? So after some time only they will realize, okay, we are not taking the backups. So if something goes wrong, they will lose the data, right? So they have to start take the backups, or they have to take a decision of start taking the backups in the early stage itself. Okay. So this high risk items are common. So that means almost every workload has some HRI. HRI means what? High risk items that may need some attention, maybe related to the security or performance or cost. Mostly the cost related or security related. So discovering these high risk items is not a failure. So okay, these problems are always there. So we have to the when you do the review, it is just a bring those issues. Okay, it will let you know. Okay, these are the problems. So when you do the well architected review, it can find out the issues. So it can tell you, okay, these are the problems we have identified in your solution. So addressing these HRI, that is high risk items, reduces the business risk. So most of these workloads can be improved. That means fixing these items improve the potential or removes the potential threats which may harm your systems. But if you're identifying them in the early stage and removing them or fixing them will help you to improve the workloads. So every time when you resolve a problem or a risk, which is strengthening your application architecture. So what is a workload? So define a workload. So a workload, I can say, is a set of components that is working together to deliver a business value. So this is the level of detail that both business and the technology leaders typically discuss. That is, basically we say, okay, I have some workload to be deployed. Means it may be a website like marketing website, e-commerce platforms, or maybe the backend mobile applications. Okay, analytical services. There are a lot of workload. So workload means what things we are planning to implement. Okay. So this may be a very simple architecture, maybe a simple website, or it may be a very complex system like distributed microservice architectures, which is using a lot of interconnected components inside it. So basically, the people and teams, that means the human resource responsible for building, operating, and maintaining this workload is part of the workload. Infrastructure and services, that is the actual cloud services or the resources that we are creating, and the architectures that is delivering this business value, that is a part of the workload. And plans and procedures, this operational procedures, documentations, that is ensuring the smooth functioning of your applications and services is also part of the workload. So workload, you can simply say a set of components. It includes the people and teams or plans and procedures, the infrastructure and services. So we have to identify the key workloads. That means, as I said earlier, a workload is representing everything that is involved in delivering a business outcome. So we have to identify the key workloads. Essentially, uh, the first thing that we do is identify the important workloads, because it is a combination of the organizational, operational, and technical components. So, which workload is critically very important for the business? Identify the key workloads and then identify the workload sponsor. So, what is a workload sponsor? A workload sponsor is the owner, the ultimate owner of the workload's success in the organization, because they are accountable to the company leadership, board, and the stakeholders for its performance. So they hold the authority for funding and the headcount, means what will be the cost or what will be the budget, how many people participates in this, all will be decided by this workload sponsor. So they will be basically allocating the budget and the resources to ensure the workload is meeting the objective. They are basically the people who decide, okay, we have to go and create a resource. So we need this is the budget and this is the number of resources we need. Resources means not only the work infrastructure, but also the team or people. So this workload sponsor role is going to ensure the strategic alignment and providing the necessary support for the workload to succeed. Suppose if the workload sponsor is unaware about the workloads or he is failed to identify the key workloads, the system will fail. And the third important point is the pillar sponsors. Who is the pillar sponsor? A pillar sponsor is the SME, a subject matter expert. So for every pillar that we have discussed earlier, there are 5 pillars in the well-architected framework. So there can be an SME for each pillar, maybe a person who is very good in security. I can call him as a pillar sponsor because he can give the advices about the best practices for security. So he can give the, or another pillar sponsor can give the advices for reliability or performance or cost. So a pillar sponsor is can be a subject matter expert for a pillar, and he is responsible for answering the detailed questions on that particular pillar. Suppose if there is a question about security or performance, so he is responsible to answer that. So he owning the high risk issues mitigation for that particular pillar. For example, if there is a security related issue, then the security pillar sponsor is responsible to own and mitigate that problem because he knows better about the security. So he is responsible for that. Suppose if there is uh, some issue or a high risk issue related to the performance or cost, then there is another SME will be responsible for that. So who is expert in that particular pillar? Maybe a same person is expert in all, or maybe there are individual pillar sponsors for each pillar. So the three phases to the review. So we have discussed a review. Review is not just not auditing. It's just identifying the gaps. Okay, like how you have deployed or how the solutions that you have deployed is aligned with the best practices defined by the cloud, means AWS. So identify the gaps in the implementations. So that's a review. So the three phases of review, including the prepare, review, and guide. So this is gives as a structured approach that AWS is recommends for assessing and improving the workloads. So in prepare means you can say this is the planning stage where you are setting the foundation for the review. Like identify the sponsors means you have to assign a workload sponsor and a pillar sponsor who will own the specific areas like a security or cost. Scope the workload means define the workload that to be reviewed, including the architecture components and the criticality. And the third is prep the customer or the team. So you need to ensure the stakeholders is understand the process, expectations, and the tools. Tool means what? The AWS well architected tool that is good that will be used. So the goal is to make that everyone is aligned before driving the review. So you have to ensure that everyone is aware or aligned with the review. Then you do the review process. Second phase is the review process. So this is the actual assessment phase. So there you will review the workload, which means you will go through the well architected questions across the pillars and you will record the review. Means you will document all the findings in using that well architected tool. So the well architected tool will identify the gaps and you will be documenting that. Third is publishing the report, which means you will generate a report summarizing the workloads, strength, and the areas for improvement. So in this phase is collaborative and focuses on identifying the high risk items and improvement opportunities. So in this phase, in the review phase, we actually execute the review and we will be documenting all the findings and then publishing the report. The third is guide. So in this phase, we do the improvement, or you can say this is the follow-up phase. So we will prioritize the HRI. HRI means the high risk items. So work with the respective teams to address the critical issues. Suppose if there is some security related issue, work with the security team or if there is some operational issues, work with the respective team to resolve that issues. Customer review and the treatment plan. So you can develop actionable steps and the timeliness for the remediation. So create the plan. Okay, what are the steps to execute? So you need to identify, okay, I have identified a problem. So now for resolving this problem, what are the different steps to execute? So prepare a plan and then identify the timeline for this plan. So, okay, we are going to fix this problem in another few days or a few hours. So whatever is the time. So also this is an iterative process, as I mentioned. So you continue refining the architecture over time because this is not an one-time task. So you have to review multiple times. Means when you do the first time review, you will identify that okay, there is uh, 80 percentage security implemented, but 20 percentage issues still found. So how to fix that 20 percentage? So you will identify okay, what are the challenges, and you can fix some of them. Then you do the review again. So you will identify that there is an improvement happened in that. So the review format options. So there are different types of review formats, like there could be self-service, individual self-service as a team, AWS-led review, or partner-led review. So the review types or review formats means who do the review. Maybe your organization individual reviews or the team reviews, or the AWS will lead the review, or the partner organizations will lead the review. So whoever is doing this review, you can use a well architected tool. You can see every review they are using a WA tool. WA tool means the well architected tool. So this is the foundation for every review. So like if a workload item is marked as a production item and have some high risk issues, your solution architect and the other team need to be notified. Okay, and they have to work on it. So when you work with the partner-led reviews, the customers can receive some AWS credits if they are using the partner-led reviews. So sign as statement of work, means because you are going to work with the partner and resolve 25% of the identified HRIs, means most of the issues which is identified can be resolved. The AWS led reviews is mainly focusing on the critical workloads. There is AWS led reviews are basically the resource constrained one. So they should prioritize the most critical workloads. And the AWS team or AWS is going to do the review. So there is a individual or team review at your side, then partner-led review. Partner can do the review, and then AWS-led reviews. So what is available in the well-architected framework? This slide, you can see some core features. Means, first, the well-architected framework. Means, the framework is designed to provide a unified, scalable, and secure architecture. Means, the framework is designed to provide a unified, scalable, and secure architecture. So, core components of the well-architected framework or a well-architected ecosystem. So basically, the content, that is the framework itself, okay, because it is containing some design principles, pillars, the questions, and the best practices. Second is the tool. So that is, it uses the framework to carry out the review. So which contains the review approach, whether it is self-service, partner, or AWS led. Then the resources from the partners, that is partner provided solutions or the marketplace solutions. Data is the third one. The information that you are having or you have doing the reviews. So when you conduct the reviews using the tools, basically you will use the WA tool, well architected tool. You accumulate some data about your workloads, like which of the pillars need some improvement. Means you will get the report, simply you can say. Okay. The pillar priority means, okay, we have to give more importance to the security because there is some high risk issues identified in the security, or there is some improvements required in the cost, or some performance related issues identified. So this will tell you where you have to give the focus or where the improvement is required. And also you will get the historical review results, and you can also get the trend across the workloads, means different types of workloads you have, and you will get the different kinds of workload review responses. So this data is going to help in decision making, okay, because it will help you to prioritize the problems, like, okay, this problems can be fixed the first, this can be fixed the next, like that. So it will help you to prioritize the fixes, and also measuring the architectural maturity. So how much you have aligned with the best practices. Okay, so we are 80 percentage compatible or 80 percentage aligned with the best practices defined by AWS. So there is only 20 percentage gaps we are finding. So you can go and improve it and keep improving, and you will get the matured solutions. So AWS is providing some documentations and labs. So there is a well architected labs available, like in the https well architected labs.com. So if you go there, there is some hands-on labs you can see on the well architected framework. AWS Solutions Library. So if you go to the aws.amazon.com/solutions, you will see some predefined solutions, okay, for different type of workloads, different type of domains and use cases. Now, what is the next step? So if you have understood what is well architected framework, okay, what are the key pillars, how we will conduct the review, okay, what is the importance of conducting the review, how the review will help you to identify the high risk issues in your solutions, and how we can go and improve our solutions and measure how much we are matured for against this well architected framework. Once you have done with this, or once you are aware about that, What's the next step? So you have to learn at your pace, means more about this. So you expand your skills with a self-paced courses available on the Skill Builder. So Builder is a learning platform available in AWS. So you can also go with the uh, certification courses available in AWS. So in Skill Builder is providing lots of free courses, which is also covering the AWS well architected, and learn from the AWS experts. Means if you are interested to learn more about the AWS services and the best practices, learn from the experts. Means from a trainer or instructor who provides the classroom sessions. Ramp up guides. This ramp up guides offers a variety of resources to help the cloud architect. So that is also another resource that is available on AWS for customers. As I mentioned, the learn in demand AWS skills are: one is Skill Builder. As I mentioned, there are lots of free courses, digital courses available, like 500 plus free digital courses available in various languages. You can also go with the certifications, means if you are interested, you can attend the AWS certification courses and learn more about these AWS architecting. So because AWS architecting, solution architecting certification is available, so you can go with the solution architecting certification also. So that's it from my side. So this is a quick session which is just talking about the well architected framework on AWS. So now if you have some questions, you can post your questions on the chat. So I'll try to answer those questions.
Hello, Sonu sir. Sonu sir. Please platform. Hello, Sonu sir.